I am the music god CJ Plain. This is the Noize Report. And today, folks, I'm doing an interview that um, probably will amount to being as close to a dream interview as I'll ever get, considering the circumstances. Um, Hopefully, you already know this gentleman, but if you don't, we're going to introduce him because what an incredible record he's done. His background is kind of surreal to even think about. And we're going to discuss the record, his life, and just pretty much anything else. It is my honor to introduce you to Mychael Gabriel. And I'm going to let him introduce himself, give you a brief background on who he is. And for those of you that know me, you'll understand why this interview is, amazing to me. So um, please introduce yourself, sir, and give people just a brief background on yourself.
Of course. Listeners, so glad to be here. CJ, it's an honor to be talking to you, and I'm so happy to be featured. So my name is Mychael Gabriel, and I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. My godparents are Sheila E. and Prince. And yeah, I know, kind of wild, right? Um, so how that all came to be. My father, Gilbert Davison, was Prince's personal security, and he ended up becoming his manager and president of Paisley Park. He started working for Prince on the Purple Rain World Tour. On the other side, my mother, she grew up with Sheila E. in the Bay Area. They were childhood friends.
Oh, wow.
And and she became her lyricist and tour manager. So when Sheila went on she opened for Prince on the Purple Rain World Tour.
Right.
My mother met my father, and the rest is kind of history. I became, I jokingly say I'm like this Purple Rain love child.
Right.
Yeah. But music has always just been a part of my life,
Yeah.
from the very, very get-go. And it's things from, Prince coming over to the house, to me going to Paisley, to Sheila always being around and a part of my life.
Yeah.
It was just as a young child, all of these things are happening, these unique going to concerts, it's just you don't realize how unique it is because it's normal to you. You're a
Right.
kid. It's the only thing that you know. And it isn't until you get a little bit older that you go, oh, wait a second. Hanging out with Prince and Sheila E. isn't like the norm.
Right.
They're not. Everybody's godparents,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah. So, but because of that influence, and my parents, just cultivating a love and a passion for music and quality music and musicianship, and instruments being strewn all over the house. Like I grew up with a drum set in my living room, sort of thing, for
Nice.
example. It That just kind of propelled me in a certain direction, you know. And then when I got older, a young adult, I had finished audio school. And so I called Sheila E. up. I said, hey, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. There's something in this.
Right.
Is it okay if I fly out to LA and just be like a fly on the wall in your recording studio? And she was so gracious, just like she always has been.
Right.
But she was really open to the whole idea. She said, you know what? Yeah, why don't you come out and you can, help me transfer some DAT tapes was the original plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Old
And
school.
right, yeah, yeah. She's like, I have all these DAT tapes. We got to transfer everything over to digital, WAV files, MP3s, whatever.
Right.
And so, I went there and I was there for about like a month or two, just kind of like emptying trash cans and, helping out where I could. And then her head engineer ended up leaving to go out on tour because he's a musician as well. And she said, I'm looking for somebody to kind of take over the studio. Do you know how to run any of this stuff? And I mean, fresh out of school, I was like super eager and naive and, just excited to, be a part of, be in the mix.
Yeah.
And so I said yes. I was like, yeah, sure, I got this, no problem. Yeah. And she was very patient with me. Of course, there's some mistakes along the way, but that's what makes us better.
Yeah.
You're learning on the job
Learning curve.
through experience. Yeah. And she ended up liking my work enough to keep me on, and I've been working with Sheila for about 20 years. And that spiraled into a whole career for me in working in film and television, working with other artists. I'm now I've been Sheila's lead guitar player for almost a decade. So that's kind of my story in like the super abridged, condensed
Right.
version. Yeah, but it's pretty wild. This whole experience has taken me on a really wild journey, leading up to now where, I said, okay, I've been doing all these things for other people. You know, Now it's time to channel some of that energy, all of those skills and all those experiences that I've garnered. It's time to, funnel it into my thing, which is originally
Yeah.
why I had an interest in music from the very beginning, because my passion for music was in songwriting. I wanted to be able to take like these musical ideas, these things that I heard in my head, and I said, I need to be able to put it down in the way that I hear, all the records that I love. That's why I went to engineering schools. I'm an engineer by trade, so I was like, I need to be able to take these ideas and get them out, and so Genesis is a record that I came out with this past August, and just been, hammering away at, getting the word out, and getting my live act together to be able to, show that and share it with many more people.
Awesome. I am actually, oddly enough, I turned 52 the day before. Well, let me kind of relate it a little bit this way. Um, I was born on April 20th.
Okay.
So I grew up with the stigma among all my friends that I was the dude who was born on 420, but I was the only one that didn't smoke weed. So I caught the brunt of all the jokes. How are you going to be born on 420 if you don't even smoke weed? I just don't. Um, but in 2016, I had one of the best birthdays of my life. And then I woke up the next morning
Yeah.
and was kind of like, one of the worst
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Um, and Prince is somebody who I hold him and Freddie Mercury as the two examples of almost flawless musicians in the
Yeah.
sense that they were so far ahead of the curve
Right.
that, you know, when people debate, oh, well, the greatest singer of all time or the greatest entertainer of all time or the greatest this or that, I don't normally put Freddie and Prince in that discussion because they're so far beyond that. Like,
Like a league of their own.
yeah, like it's unfair to other people want to do like I do a podcast where we make like weird brackets, funny brackets.
Sure.
Oh, the greatest singers of all time. And I didn't put Prince in it, and I didn't put Freddie in it. And why do we have those two in it? Because it's unfair to everyone else.
They're gonna rank among the top every single time.
Yeah, like what do you mean? Well, look, Steve Perry, Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin, um, Grace Slick, David Bowie, all amazing singers. But it's unfair to put them in the same category as Freddie and Prince because they just don't match up. Like the pure or the sheer magnitude, I guess, of the work that
Sure.
Freddie and Prince did.
I
The
always call Prince. I always say like he's like the Mozart, modern day Mozart, like a
yeah,
Mozart of our time. Like you look at his
yeah,
catalog, you look at the versatility of his music,
yeah,
you look at everything across the board, his musicianship, how he was able to like
yeah,
go from go from instrument to instrument and be killing on all of them,
yeah.
and half the time, he's in the studio creating a lot of these things by himself, and then, he might bring in a band, later on, especially in a lot of those early records, it's just him on almost everything.
Yeah. And even at the towards the end, like the ability to release Plectrum Electrum and Artificial at the same time,
Mhm.
two records that were opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
One with an all-female band, and one that was, for all intents and purposes, pretty much a Prince solo record.
Right.
Who else did that? Like, who else could do that? Like, there are you could count the musicians and the performers on one hand who had the ability to do that successfully. And
Right.
Prince didn't do it once, he didn't do it twice, he did it four, five, six times.
He did it throughout his career. Yeah.
No, so the if you look at I guess the musical family tree of what Prince was, the acts that he was associated with, the acts that he wrote for, Sheila E, Wendy and I always get their names mixed up.
Wendy and Lisa.
Wendy and Lisa, Sheila E, Madhouse. Uh,
I
it,
love Madhouse.
yeah, like there's and acts you don't even think about, like Shaka Khan, Rosie Gaines, Stevie Nicks. He wrote for Stevie Nicks. He wrote
Yeah.
for Celine Dion, Martika.
Yeah. There's a lot of songs out there that people go, oh, yeah, that Shaka song. It was like, oh, actually, that's a Prince
Yeah,
song.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's just mind-boggling. So for you, I would almost think like it would have been a blessing, but almost also kind of, I don't want to say a curse, but I guess, I mean, was it hard? Were there expectations that you had to live up to kind of
You
that?
know, I don't really think so. I mean, because I always say, there's never going to be another Prince,
Right,
there's just not,
right.
It's like the artists like that are like one in a million, sort of thing.
Mhm.
But so for me, the best that I can do is just try to honor, to honor any sort of legacy would be what, a lot of musicians out there and artists are trying to do, which is what he always preached. It was like, have that passion for that music, whatever artist, whatever art that you're trying to put out there, let it be authentic, let it be genuine, and you know, try not to get to a place where you're so reliant on other outside things. Like I'm just gonna come out and say it, and this is not uh, uh, a criticism to anybody that does this, but like technology, where it's like I know like AI,
Mhm.
So I don't know if you know about this, but like AI has now the ability to just like create songs. You say, okay, create a song that sounds like it was written by this artist, and here's some ideas for like lyric. You type it in. Prince would not be about that at all.
Right.
Like he would not be about that at all. But that's not to say that he didn't utilize some technology in
Right.
an artistic and musical way. Like you look at a lot of those, like he was a huge fan of the Lynn drum machine, for example, right? But he wasn't like reliant on it. It was just like another way for him to
Yeah.
express himself. It was just another musical conduit. Um, so, you know, now fast forward to nowadays, I always say, the cool thing about musicians and artists nowadays, that's different than Prince's Prince. That's different than Prince, right? is, and you could call it maybe a slight advantage. Hear me out. Prince never grew up listening to Prince,
Right.
but we all have the blessing and opportunity to listen to this master at work, and he has a incredibly vast catalog.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to kind of do our homework, to do our homework and to try to honor that legacy through our own artistry. And so it's not about necessarily living up to any sort of standard, or because I don't really feel that music is like a competition like that.
Right.
It's more like an experience. It's somebody bearing their soul, sort of thing, and being kind of unafraid to kind of stand there in front of a crowd like naked, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And saying, okay, this is me, this is what I have to share with the world. And Prince was somebody that was never afraid of doing that. And
Yeah.
he was an artist that was able to find the perfection and sometimes the imperfections, right? I talked to a lot of people that work with him, as well as some of the engineers and whatnot too. And they say, it's like everybody wants everything so clean and pristine and auto-tuned and fixed and tweaked and everything. And sometimes you end up sucking the life out of it. And Prince was great about, live and in the studio,
Oh,
finding those magical moments,
yeah.
and it's like, okay, this is dirty. This isn't, completely pristine and clean, but that's how it's supposed to be, because that's where the magic is.
I
So it's up to all of us to honor him, through our own artistry, but it has to be genuine.
Yeah, like I had the honor of seeing him live one time. Um and there's no words
Right.
to describe the command
Right.
he
Right.
had of the stage, of the audience,
It's
of
true. It was like it was his home.
yeah, like I'll never forget like one of my favorite songs by Prince, and it's a song that people don't really talk about, I think, nearly enough.
Mhm.
Is the song "The Cross."
Oh, I
Oh,
love that song.
now
Yeah,
those who know that the recorded version of it and the live version of it are significantly
significantly different. Yeah.
different. And that night when he performed that, he stood center stage with single light on him,
Hmm.
just lightly, you know, dun, 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 and just singing it. And it was so quiet in Cobo Hall.
Right.
You could have dropped a napkin on the floor and heard it.
Yeah,
Like,
because everybody was fixated on one point on the stage. That was
and
him. Yeah.
I've been to thousands of concerts all over the world in my life,
Yeah.
and it was it was the craziest thing I've ever witnessed. I mean, and there were all throughout the show, there were moments like that when he did
Yeah.
Night Pearls, Thieves in the Temple,
Yeah.
which is probably my favorite Prince song of all the songs.
He
Uh,
always used to say, "Too many hits."
yeah,
I got too many
Endorphin
hits.
Machine is another
Yeah.
one that I know
Yeah.
people don't talk about Endorphin Machine, but that song just something about that the power of that song, man, and the
Yeah.
guitar in it is just it's this song that is just right on the edge of going out of control.
Right.
I mean, that's what was great about Prince, man, is he had all the huge hits, but he had the other hits too that even when they weren't singles, they were still
Right.
just damn near flawless. Um, let's talk about your record, Genesis.
Sure.
Because the thing that I absolutely love about this record, having listened to it multiple times, is it has all of the elements of the
Thank
songs
you.
that I just named.
Oh,
It
thank you
has
so much.
guitar, it has the passion, it absolutely
Ah,
lives up to the I don't want to say hype, but it lives up to I guess the tagline of
I so
what
appreciate that, CJ. For real, that really warms my heart, man.
um Ghost in the Midnight is. such a it's such a Prince song. I mean, and I guess
Yeah,
for lack of a better term, like I couldn't help what hearing that song and thinking, damn, I could you could just picture him standing on stage singing that song.
sure.
Um,
Oh, thank you.
Sunday afternoon just takes a complete right turn and almost goes completely into the Beatles type of area.
Oh, thank you.
Dude, this is it's such a great record, man. And
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to put together, you know. I mean, it took a while to um find whatever I was missing
right,
in finally putting out a record because I always said, you know, I don't want to just I have a lot of songs. I have a huge catalog of songs, you know, and I have even more songs that I'm excited to share with, you know, an audience. But it was important for me to not just throw a bunch of songs together and say, okay, here's the record, you know, like I wanted it to have a concept. I wanted it to have a whole, you know, message, you know, and a lot of that is because, you know, of the music I grew up with, you know, Prince included. It's like a lot of those, you know, albums that I love, there was like a cohesion to it, you know, it felt like one organism. It felt like you know, I know we live in like a singles era where, you know, people just kind of throw up, you know, songs on a Spotify playlist and, you know, I'm good to go. But, you know, I grew up with like listening to records front to back. And
yes,
so, yeah, and I know you can relate to that. And
that's
so,
one of the things I miss the most
right.
is radio stations used to on Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
New records came out and they
Yeah.
would play them from beginning to end at like
There's
midnight.
something special about it, you know, like
You know,
I mean, there's it's an experience, you know?
so
And
many
so like
classic records that I learned of
yeah.
that way, laying in bed when I was supposed to be sleeping
Yeah, yep,
at 10 or 11 years old. And I heard
yep,
Theater of Pain by Motley Crue, Third Stage by Boston, uh,
yeah,
Five and Dime or Midnight at the Five and Dime by Meatloaf. Um,
right,
just so many classic records that the stations and the radio station would never be allowed to do that
right.
on today's.
Yeah, no, it just wouldn't happen. It would I mean, like internet radio and you know, people, you know, putting in the good work like such as yourself, you know, have the power and control to, you know, to do stuff like that. But mainstream radio, it's not happening, you know. But still, like even though we live in like a singles market, you know, I said, you know, it was important for me to have a theme and a cohesion to the entire record where somebody could just hit play and not have to skip anything and just enjoy and experience front to back. And you know, it wasn't until January 2022, you know, that I finally it kind of dawned on me this whole concept of, you know, what became the Genesis record, you know, where it's a part biblical allegory, but it's part like, you know, the first, like it's my origin story as well, you know, so it's kind of an amalgamation of those two concepts and you get Genesis. And you know, the from how the record starts off, I was like, you know, I want it to start off like the concerts I like going to, where, you know, the band comes out and they just start ripping it straight out the gate, you know,
Mhm.
and it kind of ebbs and flows, sort of like a little bit of a roller coaster ride the rest of the way through. I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
The greatest thing about music to me, um, as you can see probably from looking behind me, um, I am a student of music and I have been
Yes.
my entire life. I grew up with a father who is a truck driver. He is currently in his 52nd year of driving semi trucks. Um, we didn't own a house until I was almost 7 years old because we lived in his Peterbilt.
Yeah.
My mom and dad divorced when I was two. So for those 5 years between the ages of 2 and 7, when I had to go live with my grandfather because the state said he has to go to school,
Yeah.
uh, I lived in a semi truck and we didn't have a TV. There were no computers, cell phones, or any of that. So I
Yeah.
had books and I had music.
Yeah.
I was surrounded 24 hours a day by music like Motown stuff, Bad
Yeah.
Company, Blackfoot and Marshall Tucker, Jerry Reed and George Jones. I was surrounded by Boston and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
My dad was a disciple of Bob Seger. Bob Seger is one person who I would have literally been beaten with a stick if I would have ever said a bad word about Bob Seger because that's my dad's idol. Um, so I was very lucky to
You were well versed in a huge array
yeah,
by
like
the
I
time
didn't
you were 7.
only get to see the country firsthand,
Yeah.
but I got to do it with almost a soundtrack.
Yeah.
My dad had this great rule of every time we stopped at a new truck stop, I could
Yeah.
I could always buy one cassette or one record or one 8 track or whatever.
Oh,
I
that's
had this
cool.
massive collection of music that now at 52 years old is almost 3 million songs across 100 genres.
Wow.
So
That's so cool. I
yeah,
mean, I bet you
so
have so many great stories.
um, I'm this guy who will listen to Prince, Slayer, Charlie Daniels, and Blue October all in the
See,
same
I
city.
feel like that's so great. I mean, I feel like, it's important to have like a
Yeah,
vast sort of palette for music as well, you
and
know,
the
especially if you're a creator or you're
yeah
in any sort of creative space, it's important to not just kind of stay in, you know,
the the
one
problem
lane,
I've run into is I am working on my first record.
Oh, what?
At 52 years old, I've decided I'm going to
Okay.
record my first record.
So
Now,
you gotta share. You gotta explain to me like what's the whole concept, what's the
well,
vibe, what's the
that's the thing. Here's the problem I'm running into is I have all of these influences
yeah,
and I have these songs, many of them 20, 25 years old. I've had them since I played in a heavy metal band in the 90s, an
sure.
extremely heavy band, and we were almost signed to Atlantic Records.
What's your primary instrument, if you don't mind me asking?
I actually play bass.
Okay, great.
I am a mediocre singer at best, but um, for my lack of skill, I make up with passion. Like
Hey,
so,
that's what it's
uh,
about. That's what we were
yeah.
talking about. Just being
Um,
genuine.
but you know, I'm trying to assemble the right people to write with and work with. The problem I'm running into is when I start saying, "Okay, who are your influences?" Oh, Pink Floyd, The Cure, Blue October, Charlie Daniels, Jerry Reed, Creator and Slayer, Joni Mitchell, and people look at me like, "What? Like, like you can't put all that together?" And I'm like, "Why?"
Hey, there's no boundaries in music.
Right. So I'm almost going to be the type that I'm going to have to release singles because the songs that I have, some are very country, some are very rap and metal oriented.
Right.
Some are just straight thrash. Some are
Yeah.
songs like Blue October, where they're very introspective in modern rock. So
Yeah.
there's all of these styles that if I tried to put them together on one record, it's going to be so schizophrenic that people are just going to, what the fuck was he thinking? Um, and I like to make the joke that it's almost Prince like in the sense that
Well, I mean,
probably the only one who would write a record that was as I guess so far across spectrums of music.
yeah. I mean, well, going back to I mean, just going back to Prince, I mean, just look at his catalog. Like he has such a vast array he had such a vast array of musical interests, and I think that's cool. I think
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love music that defies genres. I love music that just breaks down boundaries.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of mashups.
Yeah.
I know there's a fine line with them because of artist rights, and I would always hope and pray that the person creating the mashup does it as legally as possible.
Right.
Um,
But it's fun to explore, like
but
just the what if scenario.
yeah, like hearing uh DJ Lobster Dust mix. I heard it through the grapevine with Round and Round by Rat. And your brain says that should never work.
Right. Yeah.
Yet there's this video out there that Marvin Gaye is singing over the guitar track of Round and
Yeah.
Round by Rat. And you have Willow Smith with My Hair over Creator's music, which is the thrash song. And again, your brain says that shouldn't work. But
Right.
logically, you have Creator in the background, German death thrash, and you have Willow whipping her hair.
Right. Yeah.
Perfectly conceptually matches what Creator does. And
See, that's arguably the upside of technology, right?
right.
Yeah.
Now the downside of technology is the fact that anybody can record, and sometimes that's a bad thing. Like I'm not going to name any names, and everybody will know who I'm talking about when I say
Sure.
it. But there are artists who they're so bad that you can't even correctly put into words.
Sure.
I have one artist out of Canada, and she is a rapper. And well, let me rephrase that. She likes to fashion herself a rapper.
Sure. Sure.
The problem is she's bad. Okay. Like, she is horrifically bad. And she's done 7 records. I don't know where she continues to get the money to record these records.
Sure.
The beats and the music she uses are world class. These could easily be on any Dre record, Eminem record,
Sure.
anything. And she is over the top of these world class beats. And I'd like to say she's offbeat. She's not even in the same solar system as the beat. Okay. And you would think over 7 records she would improve,
Right.
would learn.
See. So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Well, maybe she's doing her thing, and maybe she'll get better.
7 records later,
Oh,
horrific. And it's just, I don't want, I mean, I don't mean it to be cruel.
sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
There is a point that you would think somebody along the way over 7 records would just be like, come here and let me talk to you. Let me put a bug in your ear. Let me suggest working with this person or this person.
Right.
Technique, something. And obviously she has nobody.
Well, I'm gonna hold out hope for her that maybe someday it'll.
And like I said, I hate being
Yeah.
me. Like even when I do music reviews, I go out of my way to try to find the positive.
Find the positive, find the good.
And there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
artists that I don't get the hype of. Like I am infamous as the guy that I don't relate to Eminem on any level,
Sure.
which is made worse by the fact that I'm from Detroit. You be from Detroit.
Wait, you can't be from Detroit and not like Eminem.
I don't relate to him. I don't. Now, Royce the 5'9", on the other hand, is one of my favorite. And, he's a freaking collaborator with M. So it's this weird balance of how can you not like M? I don't relate to it. I just don't. There's nothing that M has ever said that I've gone, whoa, holy shit. On the other hand, KSR1, I think, is the greatest lyricist of all time. And, I even at 61 years old, the guy is phenomenal now as he was in 1983, I think it was when he debuted.
Sure.
The song "Let There Be Light."
Yeah.
I keep getting off track, and I don't mean to.
No, I love it. I love just having a conversation.
Yeah. The song "Let There Be Light," and there's videos for those of you watching, there are videos for all of these songs that we're talking about.
Yes,
Sunday
indeed.
Afternoon, Not to Be Like, Ghost in the Machine. There's Invictus, I think, has a video.
Yeah.
There's I think I counted like seven or eight videos there are.
Yeah. Yeah. There's several.
But Let There Be Light. Kind of talk about that a little bit because that is just a complete. I know people are going to immediately say the Lenny Kravitz comparison.
Uh-huh.
For me, that song is just so much more Hendrix than it is Lenny. Like,
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that song was written in like 30 minutes. So like I said, I knew I wanted to, so I had this concept. I was like, okay, the record's going to be called Genesis. And then I just had a revelation like in one evening and I was like, wait a second. Like, okay, I open my Bible. I'm like, wait a second. That's like the first like line. I'm like, okay, so that's the title of the song. Okay, then I grab my guitar and I'm like, okay, let me just like whatever the first thing that comes out, that's what I'm gonna track.
yeah,
And then it's that guitar line, boom, 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 right? And
yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's it. And then I like recorded like 16 bars of that, and then I was like, okay, like let me just play the drums down, and I'm just visually like mentally I like play all the drums like almost like I think in one take like where I thought everything was going to be like if I was just going to play it live, and just played the whole thing down. And then after that it just snowballed from there. I'm like, okay, let me record the rest of the guitar, let me record the rest of the bass, and I had a song, then the lyrics just came out like just so naturally because the whole idea was to come out of the gate with guns blazing, and what better way to start a record that's named Genesis than with a song called Let There Be Light saying, yo, here I am. And so that was the whole concept.
It's funny that song titles can kind of come at the craziest time.
Right. Well, and there was like 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The title that I'm going to use for my record, um, I was actually sitting in a government class. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes all the way back to high school. Um, and we were sitting in a government class and we were discussing the three-fifths rule, if I remember correctly, part of the blah blah blah. And the whole concept of it was foreign to me because I grew up in an extremely racist family, and
Mm-hmm.
I always hated it. The having to sit there
Sure.
and not have a voice, and um, I hated that, and I just when we were discussing it, the teacher asked a question about how does that make you feel,
Sure.
and I didn't have a good answer other than it makes me angry that anyone would want to feel that way or that
Right.
anyone would think that way or even want to treat another human being that way.
Sure.
And the teacher said, well, what do you think that we have in common with other races and what do we have in difference? And before my brain even really thought about it, my mouth blurted out, well, they say all men are created equal, but at the end of the day, we're all cremated equal.
Ooh.
And as I said it, I was like, and I wrote that down. All men are,
That's a lyric.
yeah, I wrote that down. All men are cremated equal, and that's actually going to be the title of the record. Is all men are cremated equal.
Wow. Words are so powerful,
Yeah,
they are.
and that's been with me literally since high school, since like 1989, and
See,
I kicked that around and the idea of it, and the I guess the LLC that I have for my station
Hmm.
was another one. Um, you always hear when you do movies and music, it's quiet on the set.
Yeah.
And the noise report, I was like, I need something to go with noise.
Yeah.
And we were sitting around, and somebody said, well, if it's going to be the noise report, why don't you go the opposite, quiet on the set? And I just, and I was like, how about riot on the set? And my friend looked at me and he was like, holy shit, that's brilliant. And I was like,
That's brilliant.
that's,
Yeah.
let's see, it's riot on the set media.
Yeah.
And that's my website is riot on
Yeah.
media.rocks. And it just, like
You
I
were a
said,
marketing guru in your past life.
I don't know. I'd like to think I was a Viking warrior, but
That too.
I don't know.
That's cool, man.
But
No, that is
yeah,
so cool because I so relate to that. Words are so powerful, but our
right.
connection to the words are what makes them even more powerful. And I like to think like had it not been like my hang up for the longest time with the record, like I told you before, was just not having a concept. And when I was like, okay, I'm gonna call the record Genesis, and this is gonna kind of be the tie-in, like the common thread for all the songs to make sense together, then everything just became so much easier. So like in your case, like there, I mean, that title for the record is gonna bring up so many things
Yeah.
in terms of inspiration and just direction. That's exciting, man. That's really cool.
We had the idea for well a while back, and we didn't go with it because we were discussing like if we do this record, what's a surefire way to get people to hear it, or and controversy sells.
Hmm.
And the younger me, the 22-year-old me,
Uh-huh.
when I first kind of had this brainstorm idea, okay, we're gonna go the Two Live Crew and Body Count route. We're going to make this record the most controversial record ever recorded. We're going to record things that are going to piss everybody off. We're going to set out to offend everybody, like clear across the spectrum.
Right.
We had to come up with a name, and we're kicking around all these punk style names, and we're looking at books, and of course, you got the Dead Kennedys, the Circle Jerks, blah blah blah, all the punk bands, and my buddy's like, well, what about this name? And I was like, no, it's got to be something that will just really make the media lose their mind. And my buddy wrote something down on a piece of paper. And I was like, you know what? Let's flip this around. So he wrote down Jesus H. Christ and the Snuff Film Stars. And I was like, oh, that's great. I think we could do even better. And he goes, how can that be more offensive? And I was like, well, going to be Jesus H. Christ. And I'm going to wear a luchador mask. And my friends just looking at me like, dude, you're going to get shot in the middle of the street. And I was like, because when you're young and stupid and you're trying, but that was the whole concept of it is, we were just,
Right. Yeah.
we were going to be like Two Live Crew. Like we just
Right.
wanted the media to recognize us for no other reason than we were assholes, basically.
Right.
And luckily, we didn't do it because looking back at it now, 30 years later, I think, God, what a horrible person I was to even think like that at the time. But when you're young and stupid and you drink a lot and
Hey, I get it.
you have more money than brains, I guess. Um, um, but yeah, like this, so many ideas, I guess, have come from,
Right.
even Zeppelin and the Who have their stories of how they came up with insane song titles and ideas and different things. So um
But
Genesis.
yeah, so, sometimes you gotta think outside the box, you know. I totally relate to that, you know, thinking
Genesis.
outside of the box and trying to find inspiration and sometimes the strangest things or the strangest places, you know.
I just threw myself off track so bad. Tour dates, live shows, anything like that that people can go and check out.
Yeah, yeah. So more immediately, I'm playing. The tour dates will be live on my website very soon. But some dates that people that living in Minneapolis, I'm from Minneapolis, by the way.
Right.
But if you happen to be in Minneapolis on August 27th, 26th, and 27th, I'll be playing the state fair there. So that is going to be really, really exciting. So, but more tour dates are on their way. So just pay attention to my socials. My handle is Mychael Gabriel, Michael with a Y.
Yes.
And my website is the same thing, mychaelgabriel.com.
Um, Videos. I'm assuming there's going to be more videos
Oh yeah, yeah.
about
Well,
the Madam
so
on Madam
that's
and
yeah. For those that don't know, um, you know, I like to be a part of the entire creative process, like front to back. So everything that you hear, that I've released, I've not only played everything that you hear, but I engineer everything. And then as far as the music videos, like to me, that's kind of like the culmination of completing the musical idea and the experience as a whole. And so a lot of the music videos that you see, I'll either direct myself or I'll edit myself. We have a small team, but I love being like a part of like that whole process for from storyboarding the thing to the technical aspects, like the music video that we most recently released, Madam on Madam. I wanted to do something. What's the Red Hot Chili Peppers song? Zephyr.
okay.
Okay. And so I saw that music video and I was like, man, how did they shoot that? Like just because it looks different. It's like some psychedelic, like you're on high on acid or something like that. And it's like just trippy to look at. And I was like, huh. Like, so I started doing some research on how they shot it. And so we and like I can't remember when that song was released, but like technology has made so many advancements from when they shot that. Like it makes it a little bit easier, like, for your everyday person to kind of implement some of those same techniques. So for the music video that we just released, Madam I'm Adam, we used a lot of the same techniques as that music video, and it turned out kind of cool.
So I'm going to read this list real quick. Just uh, I'm going to preface it by saying I am currently going to school at Full Sail for
Okay,
audio production
nice.
and engineering.
So cool. Oh,
So
awesome.
I hope
Congratulations.
very soon to
Yeah,
be up there with you and work with even half of the people I'm going to read for this list, because this
that's cool.
is insane to me. And it will tie in directly with what I'm saying in a minute. But it says, as a writer, producer, arranger, engineer, mixer, and musician, Mychael has worked and collaborated with talent such as Sheila E., Stevie Wonder, Ringo Starr, Hans Zimmer, John Legend, Snoop Dogg, Beck, Common, Gary Clark Jr., St. Vincent, Miguel, Per, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Gloria Estefan, the Escovedo family, George Duke, George Clinton, Freddie Stone, to just name a few. Now, when I started my class,
Uh-huh.
they asked me, or when I started these courses, they asked me, what is your career ambition? And my
Right.
answer was, I want to be the new Rick Rubin, because
That
Rick is my idol.
he's up there, man. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Rick is my idol because of the fact that this man has worked with Slayer, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys,
Everybody.
Celine Dion,
Yeah.
Kelly Clarkson, and like there's
He
literally
just has that ear. He just has
like
that ear, that thing, that it factor. And he can spot that it factor more importantly, probably.
I want to be the guy when I'm lucky enough to produce records and all of that. I want to be that guy that when you come to me, I don't care what you bring to me. We're gonna take it and we're gonna make this thing
Yeah.
sound like $1 million. Okay. I don't care if it's punk, I don't care if it's metal, I don't care if it's hip hop, jazz, reggae, blues. We're gonna do it.
Right.
And I want to be known as that guy that I didn't ever put myself in a box. The same as
Right.
listening to music, doing the production, doing the engineering, doing the videos, all of that. Like I
Well,
want,
it sounds like you're most of the way there with your musical background. You know what I mean? And your musical acumen and
yeah,
your palette. It's like I mean, that's really what it's about. Like, as far as Rick is concerned, like you know, he's able to
yeah,
recognize when people have whatever that it
yeah.
thing is, that X factor thing, and he's able to just kind of turn that up and amplify it.
I mean, it
Um,
just to think what music would be without Rick,
right. Yeah.
without Run DMC and
Yeah.
their influence on hip hop,
Yeah.
without the Beastie Boys and their influence on hip hop.
Right.
Because going back to Eminem, would there be an Eminem without the Beastie Boys? No.
Arguably not. Yeah, you could
Yeah.
argue that might not be so a case.
Slayer, the whole thrash metal and down from Slayer.
Hmm.
This he worked with Johnny Cash at the end, and again,
Right.
Johnny had a massively prolific career, but Rick reinvented Johnny almost with
Right.
those 4 records that they did together.
Right.
Um, the I want to be able to be that guy, um, to be able to do that and to have that resume again, going back almost to a print style of when you look at my stuff, as great as Dre is, as great as Hit Boy is, and those guys, they've locked themselves sort of into this particular genre, and that's
Hmm.
fine if that's what you want to do. But I want to be that guy, man, that just does it and has fun with it, and the
Yeah.
artists have fun with it, and
Great music is great music.
yes, and
Yeah.
hopefully one day I get the honor of working with you guys, possibly, and
Hey, man,
just I have so many ideas that I want to bring into the world.
that's exciting, man. That's great.
I had to start somewhere, and I've done this for 35 years, and I've never gotten paid for it. Honestly, like I've done this as a really expensive hobby.
Well, it has to come from a passionate place, or else it
Right.
won't work. If you're going into it with the idea of like, okay, I got to make a buck, then it's just not gonna work.
Oh,
Like, yeah, I mean, you look at the most successful artists, especially those legacy artists, like those iconic artists. They weren't going into it with the mindset of like, okay, how can I make the most money as
yeah,
possible?
it is. It's honestly not about making the most money. It's about the concept of I want to have the credentials now
Sure.
back me up. If I walk up to someone and I say, "Look, I love your music and I would love to work with you on a record," okay, what have you done?
Right.
Well, I've done a whole bunch of local rap stuff and I've done a bunch of local country stuff, but that in and of itself, it's all local stuff. I want to be able to say I have a bachelor's degree in audio production and sound engineering.
Yeah.
I have, this background from Full Sail University, and I've been taught by these people to do it correctly
Yeah.
and do it in a professional studio, not a walk-in closet that I turned into a really cool studio. But it's still a walk-in closet kind of, like it's limited to what I could kind of do in here.
You know what though? I just really quickly, those walk-in closets are producing some great records. It's
Yeah,
my mentor always told me, he said, it's not about the tools, it's
yeah,
about the craftsman.
yeah. Billie
And
Eilish produced
yeah,
a Grammy award-winning record in her bedroom.
hey, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah,
So yeah, I always tell people, creatives and engineers, I'm like, it's not about the tools. It's not about like, oh,
yeah,
I got to have this plug in. Oh, I got to get this hardware. I'll be able to make it once I get this mic. It's about the craftsman. There's a song on my record, actually, Sunday Afternoon, that you had mentioned.
Yeah.
I recorded that with the headphone cable mic as a rough. I was at my piano and I was recording that song, and I was just like coming up with the lyrics as I was writing it, just kind of, it's like super organic sort of process. And I got used to listening to it that way with the rough vocal. So when I went to go record it on my nice mic, I was like, it just doesn't have the same magic to it,
Right.
Again, like the perfection is sometimes in the imperfect moments, in the imperfection. And so I just leaned into that, and I was like, you know what? F it. I'm just gonna keep the original rough vocal because I feel like that's the one that works.
The beautiful thing again about music is sometimes passion will outweigh what you can do in a studio.
Right.
For example, the perfect example, and I always quote this: if you listen to the Grateful Dead on record,
Mm-hmm.
they're a good band, but to me, they're fucking boring. But I've seen them live, and there are very few bands that ever walked on a stage that will compare
Yeah.
to Grateful Dead live.
Right.
Sometimes you cannot capture the energy of a person, the true energy, the true essence of who they are in a studio setting.
Yeah.
They're built for a live environment. They're built for a live stage.
Yeah.
Gary Moore, my favorite guitar player of all time, heavily influenced by Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
Gary was a phenomenal musician, but until you stood in front of that stage and watched Gary Moore play live, you will never understand
Yeah.
how brilliant Gary was.
Yeah.
The ability to improvise and play things that were just inhumane
Right. Right.
on the guitar.
Yeah.
Um, it's
I'm so glad that like the live concert like experiences
yeah,
still seems to be alive and well.
yeah,
Is even though like technology, we were talking about AI earlier, all the
yeah,
different advancements and whatnot, there's still not any substitute for the live music experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a meme I created. And you can look it up on Google Images.
Yeah.
I created a meme about the Prince halftime show. And I was like, Prince, the only man to have a Super Bowl play during one of his concerts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That is so true.
and
That is so
when
true.
people see it, they laugh. Oh, that's so great. That's so great. It was a joke, but it's at the same time,
Nah, it was the truth.
it's
It was
absolute.
it was the truth. Like,
The fact that he walked out
yeah.
and it started raining.
On it playing Purple Rain and it's raining. You couldn't plan that any better.
Playing an electric guitar,
Yeah.
sitting on a stage surrounded by metal in a fucking pouring rain. Like, dude,
That's about as epic as it gets.
yeah, like that is pure God
Mhm.
status. Okay, like not
Yeah.
that I don't mean that to be blasphemous or nothing, but
Hey,
that is as close to God status as you could humanly get. Like that is just
it was a divine moment for sure.
yeah, like that is God saying we're gonna give you one of the most epic things ever captured
It,
on
it
film.
couldn't have been planned any better.
Yeah. So and then the fact that he broke into the Foo Fighters thing,
Yeah,
same
that
time
was
in that
dope.
whole story, it's just again, it just goes back to how awesome music is and
Yeah.
what you can do with it if you truly think outside the box and you're willing to put yourself out there and refuse to be limited.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like you talk about God status. I feel like in a way like music is I'm a little biased because I am a musician, but I'm just gonna say I feel like it's as close as you can get to the divine, here on earth, because it's literally creating something out of
100%.
nothing. Nothing. Like you're bending air molecules. That's really what you're doing, and to be able to, I mean, every living thing, everything on this planet vibrates at a frequency, and so, for the music, something that came from your soul to kind of, have an impact on somebody else, or just, it's like there's nothing like it. And music as like a universal language and a unifying force, it's so cool. I mean, I've traveled all over the world, and the cool thing is I found that we have more in common than we have different. Everybody has family or their circle of people, their tribe. Everybody loves good food. you know, everybody has a job or hopes and dreams, or the things that they dislike, whatever, which seem to be more common than we would think. There's not a single person in the world that I've ever met that loves traffic, for example. There's a lot we have in common, and music is one of those things on that list as well. We all love good music.
Yeah, I've said this so many times. One of my biggest frustrations in life are people who, I can't be friends with him, he's a Democrat, or I can't be friends with them, they're a Republican, or I can't.
Right.
Why? Well,
Right.
how can you be friends with them? Simple.
Yeah, I
Here's
feel like all of those things are like artificial,
here's how. Say I'm a Republican, say you're a Democrat. Okay, we vote differently, but we love the same music. We like
Right.
the same movies. We
Yeah.
both like baseball. We love the same foods. We
Right.
enjoy the same beers. We love our families.
Right.
You're going to refuse to be friends with the person you have all of that in common with
Exactly.
because there's one single thing that you disagree on.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the most important thing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Society has existed for hundreds of thousands of years.
Exactly.
And I tell the story of my grandfather. My grandfather, 96 years old right now. He has been a union man his entire life, 36 years, General Motors. He's a card carrying Democrat. His best friend, who recently passed away, lived next door to him, gun toting NRA, John Wayne loving Republican. They would bicker and fight at each other all the time, jokingly. My grandpa, General Motors to the core. Walter
Yeah.
was Ford.
Yeah.
Can't park a Ford in my yard. Grandpa couldn't park the General Motors in Walter's yard. They were like grumpy old men, the movie.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when that corn come in Walter's field, 4 a.m., my grandfather was the first one at his house with coffee, ready to put corn in a silo. And when our navy beans come in, Walter would be the first one at our house at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he'd bring breakfast to us. And we would get it done because we were
the love was there.
We were neighbors, and
Yeah.
you did it to survive. And at the end of the day, it's more important than politics. It was more important.
So true.
Fucking beings. And
Right.
even with all the racism I was surrounded by, it was one aspect of growing up in the country on a farm that I think back fondly of now.
Mm-hmm.
It taught me the importance of family, taught me the importance of helping others and being part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
And that is a concept that as a society, we miss the point of completely.
Yeah.
That it's bigger than us.
It's true. And we're more powerful together, unified, than we are separate.
Yes. It goes back to music.
Yeah.
Such a powerful thing, whether it's through spoken word, whether it's through performance music, whether it's simply through using the music to convey messages, be it hip hop, be it soul, be it R&B, blues. Every music is rooted in a struggle of
the human experience,
class through human experience. The blues, folk music, every single music, no matter what it is, is based in the human condition, in the human struggle.
Yep. Yep. That, I mean, if you can't relate to that, I mean,
What are you relating to if you can't?
yeah, right.
It's simple.
Yeah.
I always say this to end the show, and that's what we're gonna do. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I am absolutely honored to have you in here. And
Oh, the honor and pleasure is all mine.
like I said, I do hope in the near future that I do get to work with you on some
Let's do
stuff.
it, man.
You know, but as always, when we end the show, you know my saying: be well, treat each other with kindness, and remember that music heals.
Amen, brother.